It definitely wasn't always easy at all.
While still a student at Oxford, Grace Beverley generated over $1 million in digital product sales to pay off her tuition. And since then, she's built multiple seven-figure brands and become one of the UK's leading young entrepreneurs.
Hi, I'm Grace Beverley, and welcome to the Burnouts.
Grace, welcome to the Burnouts.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I want to play a little bit of rapid fire. So I want to ask you just a couple questions. Favorite interview question to ask people?
So I ask everyone at the end of my podcast, what's the best piece of advice you've ever been given? And I feel like I've been given some of my best advice purely from that question.
Can I ask you, what's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
I shouldn't have done this to myself. I actually had an episode which I thought was really helpful, which I want to bring up today because I think that it will be perfect for your audience. But it was with Vanessa King-Ori, who is a managing director at Google and used to be chief business officer at Condé Nast and Vogue, and, you know, incredibly impressive woman. And she said that one of the best things you can do for career progression is to manage fully the things that no one else wants to do. And I think that sounds pretty self-explanatory until you think about it in detail and you think about the fact that the majority of the time people think in order to get the promotion or to get noticed, I need to work on the big shiny project. I need to be at this event. I need to be running this specific big thing that, I don't know, it might be a magazine does or it might be a business does. I need to be running this big project. Every single manager is delegating a load of things, and then there's usually like this sludge at the bottom that says 20% that no one wants to do. If you can manage that really well, that will get you noticed far quicker than all of these big shiny projects that everyone wants to be on, because everyone's on those projects and everyone is there and they're hustling to make that work. So you're much less likely to be noticed. She got one of her biggest promotions at GQ, and the reason why she even ended up kind of climbing to where she did, she wasn't even a publisher at this stage and everyone was fighting for the associate publisher role. And there was something that her boss was working on and worked on every year, and it was a pet project of his, and no one liked it because it wasn't profitable and it took a lot of work and all of this. And she said, rather than all of these other things that everyone's fighting to be put on, she was like, I would like to manage this project. She was like, I would like to manage it end to end. I don't need any more resources. I need a title for it. I need to be publisher for the project, but I'm going to do everything with zero resources, all of this. She managed to make that section of the magazine profitable. Everyone hated it. Like, people were running away from it years before that. And so I think there are different examples in every workplace, but stop looking for the big shiny thing. Look for the thing that is the pain point for your manager. Work on that and manage that well instead, and get really good at managing those types of things. I think developing a project management and organizational skill as an individual, as an employee, is one of the most important things you can do, because it translates to pretty much every single job role.
I wanted to also ask about relationships.
Mm-hmm.
How does that fit into your life? You and your husband are adorable. I love watching your content. And I'm really curious, especially as an ambitious young woman, it's notoriously extremely hard to find a loving, committed partner. So what has that experience been like for you, and what advice do you have for other young women?
It definitely wasn't always easy at all. I think that when you're someone who is a doer and you're out there like hustling and doing all these different things and being busy and all of that, I think that you don't always attract the right people, which is strange because you think it would just put some people off and they would just run a mile because they don't want someone that headstrong or quote unquote bossy, whatever they want to call you. A lot of the time it can attract people who want to bring you down a peg and who want to, you know, make you a little bit more realistic. And I've seen so many amazing women get into relationships. Their spark is lost a little bit purely because their partner wants to humble them. And that is categorically not what you need from a relationship. You need self-awareness, you need to be realistic, and you need for your partner to be able to tell you to like be quiet for a second. I think that a lot of women get into those relationships because they feel like they can manage that like they manage everything else. So I think that's, you know, I definitely experienced that in the past. I think when I got into my relationship with my husband, I was in a place where I really wasn't interested in getting into a relationship.
How did you guys meet?
So we met probably about 3.5 years ago now. We met on Raya. Which
which
I would not suggest as a place to meet a husband at all. I would say the large majority of people on there want a very specific thing, and that very specific thing is to climb like various different ranks of the social ladder. And not what I'm after. But I remember I was on there and I downloaded it after a breakup, and I was pretty fresh out of a breakup. And I downloaded it and he was on there, and he didn't have many photos of himself. Classic like artsy man. And so I was just a bit, but the ones I'd seen, I'd been like, yeah, and I really loved his work. So I was like, yeah, great. Sounds like an interesting person. But he lived in New York at the time. And he was in London probably a week a month for work. Twice he said, I'm in London, want to grab a drink. And I was fresh out of breakup and I was just like, yeah, maybe. And then, it wouldn't happen. And then we went on our first date in kind of the July, and then he wasn't back in London until about 2 months later. That's when we went on our second date. And from that second date, I was like, yeah, I will fall in love with this man. And he ended up moving back to London a few months later. He's originally from, outside of London, but he is from the UK. But I think what made this relationship different, as someone who has always really wanted that love and like really aspired to have, I don't know, not necessarily to get married, but like, I don't have a super close family. I always looked to that as a way to build that. And so I always really wanted it. I wanted it outside. I wasn't the type of person who only wanted my work. I was really wanting someone to build that with. But I think because I was at a stage where I didn't necessarily want that, or just couldn't be bothered, my standards were a lot higher. And I think I was kind of very no nonsense and very like, I'm unbothered. I was moving into an apartment by myself in a gorgeous, like this beautiful penthouse flat. I was like, I have no interest in, like, I was like, I'm going to live my hot single girl life in central London. Like, this is going to be great. And so my standards were just really high in terms of like what I wanted, what I would accept, what I was looking for. And no one was getting through that barrier. And I think that allowed me to meet someone that actually could get through that barrier and never wanted to take me down a peg, like always wanted to really sing my praises and still be able to be humble together and like understand, like think each other like amazing, but not need to bring each other down. And yeah, he's just, he's an incredible person, and he's a really, really incredible husband and has been an incredible partner since the very beginning. But I think it's, a lot of us lover girls can put ourselves in the position where we want to have a partner, and you then compromise on certain things because having a partner seems more important than not having a partner. And I've definitely been there one too many times. And it took me being out of that position to actually find someone who wasn't going to take advantage of that.
And I was going to say, like, I saw your news on social media today. I'm so sorry. And I wanted to ask kind of like how you view family and the role of partnership within your work life. Like, how is that something that you think that you're able to balance? I think there's so many stereotypes of like whether women are able to work effectively and also have a kid, all of that. I mean, that's questions investors even asked us, and like we're 23 right now, is, well, what happens when you guys have a kid? What would you say to questions like that, and how have you viewed that in your life?
First of all, they're technically illegal in the UK, those questions. So, and in all employment situations, like they shouldn't be being asked in any interviews or anything, but it is unfortunately not always that simple. I mean, I guess for context, for anyone listening who hasn't, like, doesn't follow my Instagram or whatever it might be, me and my husband were pregnant, and we lost the baby a few weeks ago, and it was right before I was opening a new store in London, and it was a hugely busy time, and it was just one of those moments where I was like, God, being a business owner gives you zero ability to like go through anything out, because you're always going through shit with your business. Like, the propensity to deal with things outside of that is so low because they always come at the same time, and then other things are flying. And it was just one of those things where like I had to have an operation and try and make sure that I could actually be there, and obviously was going through a huge amount of grief at the time. But I think, the way I see, I would be lying if I said that I didn't worry about saying anything purely because investors would know that that was on the horizon for me. Like, by saying that I'd had a miscarriage, essentially I'm saying we wanted a baby and we were going to have a baby. And I think I'd be really naive to say that I don't think that's going to affect things for me in the future. And I think that's fucking terrible. Like, I really think it is. I have yet to go through a single funding round where in the due diligence there isn't the really clever question of, is anyone on the leadership team going to be on maternity leave in the next year? Because it's essentially something that they need to know because they're investing in the leadership team. But it is essentially...
And they're trying to ask it about you?
Well, it's about the leadership team. I'm on the leadership team. Wow. So, and that's standard in documents. Like, that's standard. So I don't know, it's really complex. And I obviously working for female founded companies, obviously. But I also and I think it's statistically, we know that female founded companies also hire more women and promote more women to leadership positions because they know, if I could do this as a mum, these people could do this as a mum. And if they can't, then we probably don't have the right infrastructure in place, rather than the other way around. And, TALA has the most incredible CEO who's a woman, and she has 2 kids, and 87% of our leadership positions are held by women, and so many people in the office have families. And I think that, I don't know, I'm going to keep, I hope that happens for us, and I hope it happens for us. I hope I don't have to go through that again. But I am going to, I guess, keep acting as if it's not going to affect my work, until someone tries to tell me otherwise. And then I guess I'll deal with that situation then. Probably not very enthusiastically, but I think that, I don't know, I think it's really hard. And I think it's shit that even when I was thinking about talking about my grief on social media, I was immediately like, oh, this could be detrimental to the business, which is just fucking insane.
Because I understand an investor being like, oh, what if you're distracted with your other business? People talk about Elon Musk about that all the time.
Sure.
Investors are worried about that with Tesla. That makes sense. The asking about, if you're going to be distracted if you have a kid, to me, that really upsets me because, first of all, the fact that you, as such a successful woman who's had all these companies, who's had incredible success, who's shown that you can return value for investors, the fact that you are scared to put something out on social media is crazy and terrifying for someone who's not in that position 100%. Of privilege.
And I think that also because of the body clock, but it means that, okay, we already know things are so weighted against female entrepreneurs. This also kind of means that if they're not going to be backed once they have children, then they probably need to be only starting companies in their 20s, which is fucking insane.
You know what would fix this is if we had equal paternity and maternity leave.
Exactly. And so it's also I don't know, are you distracted, Mr. Investor, by your kids?
Exactly.
I am unaware where the difference seems to be here. And of course it is there because still statistically women are taking on the lion's share of the housework, of the caregiving, of all of this. And that's something that I'm very vocal about as well because it all feeds into it. But it's just, I have no doubt as well that things that would affect me, if I'm, as you say, if I'm worried about this, imagine all of these other people who, all the women who don't necessarily have a track record of starting businesses, but have done incredible work in other jobs or have a fucking fantastic idea. And people look at them and instantly are like, well, she looks like she's of childbearing age. And it's there is so far to go when it comes to entrepreneurship and women getting backing, and not just backing, but equality in terms of the way we view it all, the way we view the successes of female entrepreneurs, the standards we hold women to. I have seen nothing equivalent to the standards we hold female entrepreneurs to online. Nothing. I can give you a list of 10 female entrepreneurs who are disgraced never to show their name again. Some, fine. Elizabeth Holmes, she's in jail, yeah. But other ones who it's literally we have people who've, and I'm not going to name names because I don't want to be sued, but we've had men who've raised money fresh out of jail or fresh out of embezzling with another company or promising things or inflating numbers or whatever it might be. And we don't look at all male entrepreneurs and go oh, well, it could be another situation like that. It's just I put a TikTok up a few weeks ago that was talking about the standards we hold female entrepreneurs to online, because I'd seen 2 influencers in the UK, they'd released a business and the business was a higher price point. So they were selling robes, probably £110. So maybe I don't know, close to $160, $170. A candle for £50, some slippers for £80, all of this. But if you looked at the way the products were done, the candle was done in a custom mold, the robe was 100% cotton and 500 GSM or something like that. And so they were quality products. The the outrage was insane. Like the whole of TikTok was, like going around like cancelling these people and all of this. And it was like, why, when women do things, does it become a moral issue? Because there's no one here saying you have to buy something at all. Like, Jo Malone has candles for Diptyque has candles for the same price. Like, all of this. We hate when we see female ownership. Like, that's it. You don't mind when that person does a brand deal for a £200 shark mask. Like, you don't mind because you're not seeing the ownership behind that. You mind when it's going into their pocket, and that is an issue because we all do it. Like, I found myself looking at hearing something about a woman and being like, oh well, apparently she's hard to work with. Like, you never fucking hear that about men. Like, it is internalized. It's internalized misogyny. We all need to fight it. Social media is exacerbating it so badly. I've seen a lot about, I think it's Chelsea Park, who has Park, I think in the US, and that's not so much in the UK, but I've seen a lot about, like, when people have said the same thing on that and were like, why are you selling out all the time? Like, it's immoral, like, all of this. And it's like, this outrage, like, we have to keep it in check, because I understand holding people to standards and making sure things are ethical and moral, like that is so important, but we cannot burn women at the stake for every single time they make a decision that you don't agree with, because running a business is making a series of decisions over and over, half of them wrong, half of them right, working out which ones are wrong and moving on to the next one. But it inherently means that women can't start businesses, because if they are never allowed to make a mistake, then they're never able to grow a business, because businesses are a series of failures that you learn from and turn into success.
It's like perfection is the enemy of progress, and women are perfectionists in a way that men are not.
Well, they're demanded to be perfectionists now because we want perfection for people online.
When you were at Oxford, you were at university, and you very quickly amassed millions of followers. Walk us through, why did you decide to start posting on social media?
So the timeline really was that I started posting in 2015. So that was the year before I went to university, in my final year of what you'd call high school. And so I was trying to get into a fitness routine, and I was just the type of person that would try over and over again to like stick to the gym, and wasn't sticking to it. And so I started to use it as a bit of a diary, and I didn't put my face on it, I didn't put my name on it. It was kind of like an anonymous fitness diary. I wanted to see if I could make some money off it to make it worth spending all weekend making all of these recipes. So I took all of the recipes I'd made and I made them into two different ebooks. I made a sweet ebook, and then I made a savory ebook, and I sold them both online for £5. So probably a little bit more than that in dollars, $6 to $7. I made a few £100 off of it. It was nothing life changing, but as someone who was on an £18,000 salary, it was pretty. I was like, wow, I've just basically given myself a huge percentage of extra money. That next year, I went to Oxford. I was in my first semester. Around Black Friday, I put the ebooks on sale. So I was just like, oh, you can get them, 20% off. Then what happened is I went home for the Christmas holidays. Probably like the first or second week or so, I got an email from the bursar at the university saying, you haven't paid your tuition fees, therefore you are not allowed back on campus until you pay them. And I completely freaked out because I was getting a full student loan from the government. I essentially got to work and wrote the whole plan that evening. That evening it went into the early hours, so I probably finished it at about 4 or 5 a.m. And I messaged my friend who was a graphic design student, and she had made my other ebooks look nice. So I said, if I pay you £50, please can you make these look nice and like sellable, because I didn't want to sell people something. And so I said, can I pay you £50 and can you do it within the next week? And she said yes. And then I got online and I'd already had my little Shopify set up with my digital downloads and all of this. And so I just basically added new products to that. I remember just that day, that evening, looking at the dashboard, and it said that I had, I think it was like £14,500. And I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, that is unbelievable. That was a day's work. That was a day, like, it hadn't been a huge amount. It hadn't cost me anything to produce it other than that £50. And it was way more than I'd ever got from those previous ebooks, which were cheaper. But I would just remember looking at it and being like, oh my God, I've just printed myself my whole tuition fee, nearly 2 years of tuition fees in this one day. 2 days later, I think 1,000 people had bought it. And so that was up to around like £35,000. And I continued that ebook business for the next kind of 3 or so years. About 9 months after that, I went into physical products for the first time, and kind of wanted to expand on what that specific customer, like what equipment did they need to do these ebooks, all of this. I definitely struck a gold mine. Like I was in the right place at the right time. You couldn't do that with ebooks anymore. There are other things you can do it with, and so kind of in a quite unique position to be one of the people who was earning from their audience before they were even earning from kind of brand deals and things.
I know you talked about like you were in the right place at the right time to do ebooks that blew up for you and then basically launched. Now what you have is this empire of different businesses. What would you say for the girl who's a freshman in college today? What side hustles would you be doing if you were back there?
So I think digital products are still really strong. I just don't think they're coming in ebook form. So I would say things like, well, there's a lot out there on courses, but even just small resources. It might be that you design a template that works for something and you sell it on Etsy. There is a lot of that, and again, it's no marginal cost. So you're essentially doing something once and making money from that for however long you're marketing that from. I would still really look at digital products, particularly if you don't have a lot of cash to put into something. I think that the barriers to entry for entrepreneurship have massively decreased, but they are still there. And I don't think that necessarily most new entrepreneurs need to be going out and immediately raising loads of funding to, as I say, reinvent the wheel. I would really look at the things that are low cost to start. Social media is even technically one of those things. Like the ability to build yourself a following has been hugely democratized over the time and has allowed people to be able to, I guess, springboard off that to sell all sorts of other things, whether it's with your face or not. I think people often look for those gold mines and miss a lot of other things that could be really strong because they're just looking for that one quick fix. Like drop shipping was that at one point, like Bitcoin, like a number of these different things that are just like the get rich quick stuff. Totally understand why. And I, having been lucky and having been in that time, I understand that it's easy to look at that and want to get that. I think there are fewer and fewer of those things as technology has become more sophisticated and consumers have become more educated on different things, essentially.
And when did it stop working for you? Was there a point when you realized, okay, I struck gold, I have mined all the gold, I need to move on to something else?
My concentration was always around evolving even before it was necessary to evolve. And I think that's been a pretty essential part of my journey. And so I think that I probably stopped it before it actually could have stopped fully. I put a lot of the money that we'd earned from that business into developing an app version of it so that it was something that was subscription based and was able to be more interactive and work with someone for a lot longer time. So I did that about 3 years after, but within that time I was still evolving and still trying so many different things.
If you were to break down your revenue streams, how much of it is each business? Like how much of it is social media deals versus podcast stuff?
So I have a salary at TALA. I take some Shreddy and TPM are very profitable and a run to be very profitable. Like I don't need. And so if you were looking at my income, you'd probably look at social media and things that come along with the personal brand. So things like speaking events or consultancy, things along that line probably balances out with Shreddy and TPM, which I specifically run to be profitable businesses that I can withdraw money out of. I have two businesses then, TALA and Retrograde, that are both venture capital backed fast growth businesses. So they're not designed for me to be taking money out of them every year, and the idea is that we're putting as much money into growth as possible, and so those would be the least, which is funny because I think people probably look at TALA and the size it's reached and automatically like, oh god, you must be seeing so much of that. I have a salary because I have a role there.
Well, that's really interesting because I wanted to better understand what was the reason behind raising venture capital, because you raised 4.2 million pounds for TALA. Why did you decide to do that?
Different businesses need different things, and I would absolutely not ever blanket say, oh, you should go out and raise funding. I think it looks cool and exciting and it's an amazing achievement, particularly as women. We know that only 2% of venture capital goes to women, and that's the highest year ever.
You reached out to famously to all the VCs you ended up pitching. What does a cold email from you look like?
When I started raising for TALA, we were post-revenue by 2.5 years. So to even launch the business, again, because it was capital intensive, at that stage I had a significant amount of savings, which is necessary for a fashion business. So I think that, it is a hard business to get into. So being totally honest, I don't think I can give a kind of template cold email that would be appropriate for most people, because I think a lot of the time when you're raising for the first time, you are raising seed. You're raising either when you've made a little bit or pre-seed when you haven't made anything at all. So really what I was going out to people and saying was, this is our CAC. This is how much we've made. This is how profitable we are. Like I was going metrics based. And then I was saying, and these are our values, and these are the values we're going to maintain. We're not going to entertain any investors that are not aligned with these values, because we're going to end up in arguments in a few months' time. Obviously, then I've raised since then with Retrograde, which is an AI company. And at that point, I guess my track record spoke for a lot of that. So I want to be transparent in the way that I don't want to kind of say, oh, you can come out of university and send this email to people and people are going to respond in the same way as they did to me, because I was in an extremely privileged position to have already made a lot of money, got a lot of customers, proven that I could run businesses. And then when I raised for Retrograde, that was last year, and I was 4 businesses in.
Well, that's why I'm also really curious to understand is you have your podcast, your personal brand, Shreddy, TALA. How do you time manage, and what do you think that the investors thought? At any point were they worried you would be distracted?
100%. I've had a lot of conversations with potential or prospective investors who have said, okay, well, we love a founder with your profile, but we wouldn't want them to have any of the other things. I've had to convince people to see it in the opposite way round a lot of the time and really position it as a strength, because it is a strength. And I think it shows the amount I'm juggling outside of TALA, for example. I'm juggling just the same amount inside, and I have been very active in the businesses at all points. I am fiercely organized, like have always been, will always be. Wish I had another setting, would love to have a choice. But I'm hardwired that way. When I was at university, for example, I was doing full days at the library, 10,000 words a week in my degree. I would wake up and film often back to back, like 3 YouTube videos, and I was doing at least 3 uploads a week. I was posting on social media every day, and I was running the businesses. And so everything had to be very blocked out, and always has been very blocked out. So it is my comfort zone, really, to have a very jam-packed schedule. I think that I've developed an ability over time to be a fierce prioritizer and a very quick decision maker. You just have to be making decisions. Like, decision paralysis is what is going to freeze a business. You have to be moving. You might not be moving in the right direction, but you're only going to learn that if you start moving. So I think that's over and over again, that's been taught to me. So I've got faster and faster at making decisions. But at the same time, I have teams. People are still going to look on my social media and be like, oh, she's doing this and this and this and this. Every single area you see me do anything, I have help in. Like every single area. There are nearly 70 people at TALA. There are about 20 people at Shreddy TPM. There's a whole team at Retrograde. I have people to help at home. Like I have a cleaner, I have a PA, I have a personal team to help with my kind of side of social stuff. It's never just me. Like, it's been about building teams of people who are better than me at what they do, so that the capacity of the business can increase and being able to then effectively delegate to them.
I 100% agree. That's been such a huge learning for us when we work on our business, of just how important it is to have a team that you can delegate to, that you can lean on. And I wanted to understand also with Retrograde, what was the reason why you decided to start a 4th business? And you started it venture-backed from the very beginning. What was the reaction of investors? Investors
have been very excited about it, and I think for good reason. To explain the concept behind it, essentially, Retrograde is a virtual talent agency. So it's AI powered, and it's designed to help creators be able to earn what they should be earning. So the concept behind it, and the reason I even got on board, because it wasn't my idea in the first place at all. It was my co-founder Jake's idea. And he's built and sold a tech company before. His last tech company was in the creator space, and he built and sold that within 18 months for a very impressive sum. And he kind of came to me knowing that I had been very vocal about the creator space, and also spend a lot of time helping creators get to where they need to get to in terms of earnings, because I find they get taken advantage of a lot, and I don't like women being taken advantage of in any sense. This was essential for the industry. Like, I see creators every single day who are not earning what they should be, or I see creators who have amazing agents. I always want to say that, but I also see creators who have missed out on a 10 grand brand deal because it wasn't responded to in time, or they know they're with an agent that's managing 20 other people who isn't going to prioritize their £300 brand deal, even though that will make a huge difference to them. I knew it was essential and I really wanted to be on board. I was not looking for anything new. I spent a lot of time talking back and forth with Jake to make sure that it was the right thing. I felt like the right co-founder in terms of everything I know about the industry and first-hand experience as well. And I wanted to do it with Jake because he's a very successful tech founder. I feel like when those opportunities come along, you make them work. So I think it's easy to look at my, I guess, portfolio of what I do and think, you know, that's a lot of things. It must be here, there, and everywhere. I've never started a business and moved away from it, even in any way, in different areas, different departments, until that has been ready to be run by someone who is better than me. Never, ever. Like, I've never just, it's not that I see something shiny and I run off to the next thing. I build something, I hire incredible teams that go in there and that run what they need to run in the different departments. I then still stay at an approvals level I'm still involved in all the businesses. But it's not that I'm suddenly missing from the office on Thursdays because I'm now spending that full day at Retrograde. I'm also not a day-to-day co-founder in Retrograde. So Jake is the day-to-day, I'm the week-to-week. And that was important for me to be able to take the opportunity because I said I just don't have capacity. And in terms of investors, it's always been around conversations. I've always under-promised and over-delivered on all of my businesses in pretty much all metrics. And so I think trust is a very important thing. My aim has always been for these businesses to do very well. There's no point me taking a new business when I have an existing business that's worth a lot of money and just letting that one go. It's still in my interest for both of them to succeed.
I wanted to just thank you for your openness and courage to talk about this stuff online, because for young women, there are so few examples of other young women running businesses and being proud and confident to be able to speak on their accomplishments and not feel like they need to minimize themselves. So I wanted to first say thank you for that. And thank you for lending like your voice to this podcast. I think this is such an important lesson that I'm so excited for our audience to be able to hear. We honestly could have talked to you for hours. Like, this was such a beautiful conversation. Thank you so much. Like, I wish you the best of luck with like everything you're doing. You are such a killer. Like, I can't wait for your 5th, 6th, 7th business, and you're going to crush all of them very clearly.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.